guys, it's Veelia here. This is the first episode of my Raid Rant series where I'm going to be interviewing people from the World of Warcraft community about this and that. I have with me Asmongold. You all probably know who he is from his YouTube channel. And he was so gracious to, agree to do this first episode with me. And he's been super nice about the whole thing. So, thanks for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me. I always try and do whatever I can to support the community and build people up. And honestly, whenever you sent me the ideas on what you want to do, I honestly really want to talk about that stuff anyway. So I think it's going to be a really productive video either way.
Okay, great, cool. Just so you guys know, we're going to be talking about the community, sort of how Asmongold got into content creation, what the WoW content creation community looks like now, and maybe where it's going and where it's been, and compare the two. So I will start with my first question here. It's sort of just to put everything into perspective. So why and when did you start playing, and why did you start making content for World of Warcraft?
Well, I got into WoW the same way that a lot of kids get into drugs. I was basically pressured into buying a copy of the game from a kid at school, and then it stayed on the shelf all school year until a friend of mine, Mikkel Reevy, Zach, another guy named Zach, he came down and we were going to play Halo all summer, and he saw the World of Warcraft. Why the fuck aren't we playing this? And so we had to, cut his grandma's lawn and, plant flowers for her in a garden, and we did whatever we could to make that $15 happen each month. And that's basically how it happened. And that was June or July, I think it was July of 2006. And I've been playing ever since then. Now, in terms of content, I've been making videos ever since I could realize that there were video cameras. I've been making videos. Even before I had my own, I was making videos on my friend's camera when I was 8, 9, 7 years old, right? But I eventually got my camera in 2001, so I was 11 then. And I basically make videos the whole time through. And as soon as I got a computer good enough to make actual WoW content, I started doing it immediately, which was somewhere around the end of Wrath of the Lich King. Now, I do have on my old channel very, very shitty Burning Crusade videos as well. I don't recommend watching them, but they do exist. And I did that in 2008, 2009. My YouTube channel I started in 2008. That was my first one. And the Asmongold channel that I have now, I started at the end of 2013, basically at about the beginning of 2014. And the reason I started doing it, honestly, is because I was going to be going to school that year or that semester, but I ended up not having to go because my mom got sick. And I kind of did this as a backup plan and in a way just something to keep myself sane. And I would go on YouTube and I'd be like, I would love to solo stuff in the game, right? And so I would want to show people how to solo. One of the first videos I did that was big was how to solo Gory of the Old War Raider. And I went through and I figured out how to solo that stuff, because if I looked it up on YouTube, it wasn't there. And so the way that I would always make videos is I would just look something up on YouTube and it's there's not a video for this. Well, guess who's here now? It's me. And so that's basically what I did on YouTube. On Twitch, I started streaming seriously on Twitch. Next month will be an entire year on Twitch, which is kind of a big deal. That's really weird to think it's been that long. But I've been doing that for about as long. And so now I'm kind of just juggling the two. But that's kind of why I started making content and when everything kind of came together.
Awesome, great. That's I wonder if more people get into content just for the fun of it, or now that content creation. I actually work in as a community manager for Mega Bloks, so it's a division of Mattel, and
Yeah.
it's the way that we see content creation is money. It's this person's gonna promote my product, da da da, and we sort of go after influencers like that. And I wonder if now that there's that whole money aspect to it, if people are getting into it, I guess, for the wrong reasons now, more than just the
Oh,
innocent
let
reasons.
me just say, all right, if you're gonna make videos on YouTube for real money, don't do it. Okay, so if you want to make money, you go to Twitch. If you want to make money, you go to Twitch for sure. Unless you're getting hundreds of thousands of views a video, you're gonna do fine. You'll do fine on YouTube. But if you're looking to be driving around in a Lamborghini, there ain't a lot of YouTubers doing that. Okay, it's not what I would recommend to do. Now, it's not that it's not possible. Okay, but it's not what I would recommend to do. And I think that if that's something that you do want to do, if you want to make content, if you're going to make it for money, there are a lot of problems with that. But one of the main ones, obviously, it's kind of a reinforcement schedule of creating videos and then getting money because of ad revenue. So if you're doing that, you kind of put yourself in this position where you're creating videos whenever you don't really need to, but you want to make money. And that never is going to go over well for your audience at all.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I hope people listen to
Don't
that.
do it for money.
Yeah.
Don't do it for money.
I want people to
Just
get into it
because,
for
yeah,
art.
just because some people make a lot of money, it's like sports, right? It's like sports. The people that are on the NBA that get the most visibility, obviously, are making a lot of money, but everybody that's below that isn't making anything. So it's very important to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Do it because you love to do it, and hopefully you get a little bit of money in the meantime.
Exactly. I think those are the best videos too, where you can tell that people kind of like don't give a shit and they're just talking about whatever and like doing whatever they want. You know, they don't have the, oh my gosh, is a company going to be offended by this? Like,
Yeah, yeah, all the politically correct stuff, and that, oh, a word from my sponsors,
yeah.
Taco Cabana or whatever you want to say. Yeah, it's just really awkward.
Okay. On the same topic, what kind of videos do you find have the most success for you, and has that changed over time?
The videos where I'm a complete asshole usually are the best. Which, I mean, I know that some people are going to say that's all of them, but
Oh my gosh.
what I really mean to say is that the joke videos, how to be an elitist in World of Warcraft, how to get a girlfriend in World of Warcraft, transmog guide for elite players only, all that stuff is what people always like. They like to talk about, like how to do maximum DPS. All of that stuff is very, very popular. Also, on top of that, kind of like my very overarching guide videos, like I did one for like 90 to 100 in War Road to Draenor, Gory of the fill in the blank raider. Those are super popular. And also some of the meta videos that I talk about, like I've made a number of videos that have gotten like hundreds of thousands of views that just are kind of talking about different problems in Legion and what I really think kind of contributes to those and what I think Blizzard and the community can do to overcome them.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. The first video that I saw from you was the I think it was like how to do it was the I guess was it the first big dig video? Was that Garrosh or I don't know. I just know that everyone in my guild was like, this guy's hilarious. You have to see. And it was back in Mississippi area. I don't know if it was Garrosh or
There was a number of them. I remember like a lot of those videos, they would start out with just a joke that I would think of. I'd be at like Walmart, like 2 in the morning, and I'd think of like, so there was a video on how to do Siege Crafter Black Fuse, and I had a joke in there that honestly nobody even got in the video. They didn't even figure out what I was trying to say. I think I just said it too fast or something. And I just thought of that joke, and I was like, this is so funny. This is so clever. I'm going to make a whole video all around using this joke. And I think the first one I did was the Spoils of Pandaria. And that one was where it was like kind of halfway like, yeah, this is what you're actually supposed to do. And then it's just kind of devolved into killing your raid for extra damage.
yeah, I remember that one too because I went back
Yeah.
and watched all the old ones. It was kind of
Yeah,
funny.
they were really fun to make. It was disappointing that Warriors sucked and wide, or I would have made a lot more then too.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you feel like now, like back in WoD, I think there was ample time to make videos because there just wasn't that much stuff to do in the game. Now, with Legion, do you think that there's a lack of like content that requires guides now because everything is kind of like handouty or like it's kind of easier to get legendaries and easier to
World of
get
Welfare.
yeah, exactly. Like I'm even finding myself, and I'm like, not a huge content creator or anything, but I'm like, oh my gosh, like how many Mythic Plus videos can I make? Like there's
Yeah.
only like so many times you can
Well,
show yourself
that's
there.
kind of it's a two-part question, right? And is my time in the game or is my content being affected by the amount of time that I'm spending in game? And the
Yeah.
answer is no, not really. I mean, I can only do Molotov so many times. I have two weapons maxed out, and the third one almost is too. I'm about to be vendoring AP tokens. I can't wait. But it's going to be a lot of money. Some of them sell for 100 gold. I mean, let's be
yeah.
real. But I mean, other than that, you're completely right. I mean, that's been a really big problem in Legion, is because if everybody can just access things with no effort and no time, there's not really a lot of guides and a lot of effort that you have to put into achieving certain things. And the things that are achievable and that do take a lot of time and effort are, very compartmentalized. And also because they don't really give any sort of a unique power advantage or anything like that. And they're also very, very easy to obtain just by a random player. It's very easy to find out. You don't really feel, I feel like guide videos in general have not really been as popular now as they have been in the past. And I think that really, as they've tried to make the game appeal to a more casual audience, that's kind of been one of the side effects of that. Is because obviously a casual player, like if there are a lot of games I'm sure that both of us play that we don't always look up guides for on YouTube, right? I play Super Smash Brothers and I play that kind of seriously, but I don't really look up guides on how to wave dash or something like that and how to, cancel different, animations and all in Smash Brothers Melee, even though I do play it a lot. I'm just not that serious about it. And so attracting another audience of players into the game that aren't really serious enough to actually look at third-party resources and actually be involved in the extended community of the game is going to kind of create a more apathetic audience, which is going to be less conducive to making guides on YouTube and having those guides be, well received by a lot of people. And that's kind of disappointing. It's sad and it's definitely hard. Like, as I said, I started off my channel and everything, and I wanted to show people cool shit in the game. And partly I've showed people basically a lot of those things that I originally set out to do. And also, there just isn't that same level of cool shit in the game that I really have left to show people because they're not adding it back in the same ways, which is really kind of disappointing.
Yeah. Yeah, that actually leads me into another question that I had on here for you, which is, do you find yourself making videos that you don't want to make? Like, I've had the thought in the back of my head where it's like, I should make one of those top 10 something, like, in World of Warcraft videos, but I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
want to do it.
Top 10 cows and WoW.
Yeah, or like, top
Yeah.
10 sexy belts, or like, like really
Oh yeah, that,
clickbaity
yeah, it's a
titles.
million views right there.
Yeah.
Exactly. And put like a sensor thing over like the
Yeah, over
chest or
like the
something. Oh
chest,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That would be perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that I look at that shit is like top 10 is a good way to kind of categorize information, and people like to digest information that way on YouTube. But it's like, let's be real, like you're putting it in that way so people are going to watch it. I mean, and that's not even a bad thing, but just make sure that you're honest to yourself. And I don't really think it's a bad thing. Now, do I ever make videos that I don't want to make? Now, I'm trying to think. Sometimes I don't really want to make class videos because, in a way, I know that a lot of people want to know how to play a warrior. But as somebody who plays it extremely intensively, I know that a 10 or 15-minute guide isn't really going to tell somebody everything that they need to know. And so sometimes it's hard to really know what to put into videos and what not to put into videos and everything. But more or less, sometimes I'm not really a huge fan of doing news videos, just because I always record everything in one take, and sometimes I forget to say stuff. And, I just find it better. Different types of information are better digested through different mediums. And so obviously, some things are better done as a live stream, some things are better done as a VOD or a video, and some things are better done as text or a picture. And, there are always optimum, I guess, like ways to convey different information. And I feel like in a lot of things with news, sometimes you're kind of just like reading things off of a page. And so I try to kind of add in my own commentary and a value add to that video. But sometimes it can be kind of just like I'm basically reading shit off a page, which
Yeah.
which isn't the most exciting thing to see. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you tend to make all of your videos kind of exciting and funny, so I
I
think that's
try to.
yeah.
Try to. Yeah, I mean, everybody should try to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the goal.
Cool. You mentioned earlier, that you had a lot of experiences at game that you like nostalgic feelings and like things that you really remember about when you first started the game. Do you feel like
Yeah.
you still have those now now that the game has changed so much, or not so much?
Um, well, when would you consider then and when would you consider now? Where would you draw the line? And I'll
Um,
let you know.
like maybe post WAD, like
Post
WAD,
WAD.
WAD and onward.
Um, let me think. I mean, because there are a lot of really cool things that I've done on my stream.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of those things have kind of they've kind of bled over to being like extremely nostalgic. Like I got so there was one time that we were doing the achievement in Vault of the Wardens for the Golem, Ash Golem, and it was before it was nerfed, and so you needed like 3 or 4 prop paladins in order to survive it, or you needed some kind of like weird DPS strat right at the last second, and if you mess it up, you'd be done for the week. And so what I ended up doing is I got the 3 prop paladins together and I did it on stream and we had like thousands of viewers watching it and it was like make or break because they were going to be nerfing it soon and it would be the server first that nobody would have ever had on the server. And I had gotten Panda Express earlier that day and I open up the fortune cookie. This is Taco Bell hot sauce, but imagine it's a fortune cookie. I open it up and it says achievements mean more whenever they're worked towards.
Oh wow.
I swear to fucking
Oh
God.
my gosh.
And we got the fucking achievement.
Oh my gosh.
And that was incredible. That was so awesome. And I mean, there are things like that that you just you can't really script things like that.
Yeah.
And you know, there are all kinds of other things. And so a lot of those memories and everything have been kind of shown through Twitch and all. And I feel like I'm always going to remember that stuff. Now, obviously, kind of memories are really shared with your friends. And I feel like now, since there aren't really as many incentives to kind of interact with and play with your friends and build those long-lasting relationships, it's harder to have those experiences that you're going to look back on in 5 years, maybe you've actually, after you've stopped playing the game, and still remember. I know that, you know, some of the very, very core nostalgic experiences that I've had, I will always remember, even after I've quit the game. So I feel like obviously it's more difficult to have those, but they're definitely still obtainable.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I find like I don't know, like some of my best memories I guess were back in Wrath of the Lich King. I don't know what about that expansion, you know, sort of everything that I did felt like new and legendary and I played a little bit beforehand, but I don't know if I'm not finding myself personally that I'm having all that, but I think it like you said is tied back to friends more and I don't I've been kind of guild. Well, you don't really even need a guild to really do a lot of raiding now unless you really want to do mythics. So, a lot of alt runs and it's even harder to level in alt. So it's like I raid on my main and I raid the 3 days that I can, and then I'm just doing mythic pluses on the other days or like farming other kinds of content. So
Lots of fun.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, when did you start playing? When did you start playing them?
early Wrath. So like
Okay, well, I think that really makes a lot of sense. Like my earliest memories and like some of my best memories are first starting playing the game, and I think it's the same thing with everybody. Obviously, people are going to remember very fondly the moments whenever they first started playing. Like I started first playing in vanilla, and I remember the first time we went to Dead Mines, and I remember the first time I remember me and my idiot friend Zach. Well, what does LFG mean? And everybody thought we were trolling, but we just started the game like yesterday, so we had no
yeah.
idea. And so we were trying to figure all this stuff out. And, I remember one time we were killing wolves and we were trying to save up money, silver, actually, silver, just to put it into perspective, to buy a sword at the blacksmith in Stormwind, okay? A white item, a white sword.
Oh my God.
And I was going to buy it. And then he asked me, he's like, hey, do you have any money? And I'm like, for what? He's like, I need the sword. I'm like, fuck you, bitch. I'm buying that shit right now. And so, because I had seen it, then he saw it after me, and he's like, why are you killing all these wolves? I'm like, you'll see. And so, like, all that kind of stuff, and, finding that out and exploring it and having those first initial experiences and being able to experience that kind of a world, I think that's obviously, even if people start playing the game now, they'll remember whenever they started better than maybe a few or 5 years afterwards if they end up playing that long. I think that just kind of goes with the territory of first beginning and experiencing something like that.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah.
So switching gears, who are the content creators that you really like? And two-part question: are there any new content creators out there that you've been tracking or following, and how do they differ from you?
Well, I think a lot of people aren't really as aggressive as I am and like kind of as outspoken as I am. And I think that's, a good and a bad thing. Obviously, it depends on what it is. There are a lot of really good content. You're one of them. You're good. I watched a couple of your videos, so everybody should subscribe. Well, I guess people are already watching it on your channel, so that would kind of go without saying. But anyway, you guys definitely should. Also, I really like, there's a lot of people. I don't want to kind of make a list in a way because then it's like, what wasn't I on the list?
Of course.
But I mean, for the most part, I made a top 20 or top 5 people under 20,000 subscribers, and like Haven Games makes amazing videos for like kind of exploring the content, in ways that it wasn't really supposed to, like seeing things from a different perspective. Hayes DK makes a lot of like DK PvP videos, and Palav makes all kinds of like really funny warrior videos, and I fucking love those. And Ragtag used to do the same thing.
Oh,
He moved over to
rest in
Overwatch
peace,
though.
Ragtag.
Yeah, yeah, he's a really great guy. I like him a lot. And so he's one of them. Obviously, I always watch all of Bellure's and Preach Gaming's and Nobbles videos too, or as many of them as I can. And I think that I watch the Legacy of the Burning Crusade video about every month that Mike Preachwell did. I don't know why. It just makes me feel really good. Just lay in bed, snuggle up, with a pillow, and just watch it and just remember the good times. I don't know. It was just it was something about that video. I always say that, but there are a lot of other people out there too, and I don't want to kind of not mention somebody, but I think that there are a lot of people coming up trying to make content and everything, and it can be really difficult to try and do that. And really, my advice to anybody like that is just do whatever you can. Find something that other people aren't doing or can't do, and do that yourself. Making points of difference are much better, is much easier, and it's much better than trying to just do something better than somebody else, because usually the person that's doing it, even if you do it better, it doesn't really matter because they're already established.
Yeah, and
But,
communities can be angry and like possessive, and yeah, so yeah.
oh yeah, oh yeah, they people get really really upset. Like if you type my name in the general forums, like that, there'll be a frenzy, man. I'll tell you that.
Oh really?
They don't like that. Yeah, they don't like me.
No, I've never
Um,
seen that. All I see is like on Reddit if someone said like Reddit sometimes is like witch hunter central. Like I've seen like with the stuff that's going on with Wildhead right now, I think is really like upsetting. Like and it's like some people could be in the WoW
I
community
don't
could be
really. I think that honestly, content creation, Wowhead is trying to hold on to an outdated medium. Making money through ad revenue is dying, and soon it will be dead. That's going to be it. There are a number of reasons for that. I'm not going to get into everything, but basically, people are getting like their monetization shut off for saying things that are politically incorrect. They're getting it shut off for saying things that kind of differ outside of the window of what's acceptable. They're getting it shut off through random algorithms, and it can just prove to be very unstable. And also with the advent of ad block and how prevalent that's becoming, there's going to be no real way to make a living through ad revenue. And so Wowhead's trying to do their best to make a living and do whatever they can, but at the same time, I feel like they really have to change their paradigm of how they make money and what they do and what they spend their time developing content on.
yeah. I can see from a professional perspective where like from the company that I work for where I think I mentioned earlier, we're really looking at like influencers and content creators and spending more money there in regards to spending money on basic banner ads and stuff like that. And it's hard to change some people's mind about that kind of stuff, especially in a company setting where you're speaking with like kind of older people in a position that make that kind of decision, and
Yeah.
they don't really know what is Twitch. I've had to explain what Twitch is more times than you can imagine. Like where I work, it's kind of
Oh yeah.
crazy. Like
Anybody over like 35, I
yeah,
mean, they're like, "What's Twitch? Isn't that something wrong with you?
yeah,
With your hands?" I'm like, "No, not quite.
yeah,
But you're on the right track." I think that really, I mean, online content creation has kind of moved towards like direct crowdfunding, and that's really what kind of you're saying is that your company is looking towards directly sponsoring certain individuals,
yes,
and that's really what the future is going to be. It's going to be through sponsorships and direct crowdfunding through an audience. And I don't really know what's going to happen after that, but that's really the way that content creation online is going right now. And you've got Patreon. You have like kind of in a lot of ways like subscriptions on Twitch, and ad revenue through YouTube and everything. It's just not really going to be. It's not going to be a thing for that much longer. I don't think. Obviously, it will always be a thing, and remnants of that will always come along. It seems like now, since we even have like virtual reality, people still listen to the radio, and obviously there's still going to be remnants of that always. But in terms of that being the actual monetary paradigm and business, I guess like business structure of the way that people are going to make money, that's going away very, very quickly. And it's like, for me personally, about 25% of my views are monetized views. And so the other 75% are unmonetized views.
Hmm.
And so it's just going to get bigger from there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's going in that direction. So on the line of like things dying and that, do you think the raiding community is dying any? Like we've had a lot of guild announcements that guilds are, like well-known established guilds, sort of ending it after killing Gul'dan, some even before,
Yeah, Midwinter went right after they
yeah,
killed Elisand.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
yeah. I think that honestly, Legion, because of the amount of investment that you have to put into one character, whenever you look at like artifact weapons, legendaries, and artifact knowledge in general, and Titan forging through Mythic Plus and all of that, obviously it's always an arms race with the world first race that who can do more split runs, who can spend more time, who can do more attempts, who can raid longer, and all of that kind of stuff. So obviously, if one guild is doing 4 split runs, another guild feels like, okay, well, now we have to do 5 split runs. And so if they feel like, other guilds are working very hard to get this many artifact trades or whatever, then they're going to feel like in order to stay competitive, they have to do the same thing. Now, it's kind of a two-part problem, obviously, because you've got the problem of the development and design of that system through Blizzard, but you also have the problem whenever you look at the actual players themselves. These are player-imposed restrictions and expectations. So, is it really the problem of the players to try and be as competitive as possible? Well, partly in a way, but I do also feel like Blizzard should do something to kind of rein in those types of players that are obsessive compulsive, because you have to remember that just because somebody is in a world first raider doesn't mean that they still don't want to be as powerful as possible and do as much as that they can to improve their character. And I feel like the endless treadmills that they've put in place with Legion, with the Concordance of the Legion fall in 7.2, and then also the ongoing thing with legendaries and Titan forging and sockets and all, that kind of puts somebody on like a treadmill that just never ends. And I feel like for a lot of people, I think it's better to reach a destination rather than give up at some point where you just reach a plateau and you give up, right?
Yeah.
So like before in like Siege of Orgrimmar, I had absolute best in slot. Well, I didn't have Tusk of Manaroth, but I had absolute best in slot besides Tusk of Manaroth. And in Dragon Soul, I again had absolute best in slot. There was nothing in the game that I could achieve that would be better than what I have. And being able to get up on that top of the mountain and say, I'm finished, I'm done, that's the most satisfying thing ever.
Yeah.
And it was the same feeling that I got whenever I got my 54 traits in my artifact weapon for arms. That was amazing. I was like actually finished. And giving somebody that point and that satisfaction of finishing, of completing, of meeting a goal is more important, I feel, than just keeping them on a treadmill for maybe a couple more weeks and then having them leave due to apathy. I think that it's better for somebody to finish than to give up.
Yeah. Do you think that people can feel that? Like, do you think like with tight, I guess like Titan forging and all of that, like if they don't have like a 925 piece in every slot, that they can really feel finish?
Well, for me personally, no. I mean, like, I don't really feel finished. I just give up. I'm like, okay, well, I'm probably
That's
not going to
good
get
enough.
anything else. I'm done. Yeah. I mean, what am I? I mean, yeah, there's like one guy, like maybe I get one 925 piece and it doesn't have a socket or a tertiary stat, so it's not even as good as it can be. Like, why even try? I
Yeah.
mean, I understand the odds. I'm not a gambler. I don't buy lottery tickets, okay? Like, I understand that this is never going to happen. And maybe I might do it occasionally just for fun, and maybe I would have done it before, and if I didn't really need anything anyway, just for to play with other people. But the one thing that I can say is that it's definitely been a huge disappointment to know that I can never really meet a goal again.
Yes. I
That
yeah.
really sucks.
I feel exactly like that, and I feel that also for legendaries. I kind of miss like the achievement of like going through a quest line forever, being that one person in your guild that like gets the
Yeah,
legendary, and then it's like you, and then people, and I miss like standing. I know this is like really like, I guess like selfish,
I
but I
feel the
miss
same way. Don't worry,
standing around in Dalaran or something with my huge weapon that I like took so long to achieve, and people accidentally inviting me to groups because they're
because they meant to
inspecting.
inspect you.
Yeah.
That's fucking right. Yeah,
Yeah.
they had to move those. You notice
Yeah.
that invite and inspect aren't next to each other anymore because
Yeah.
people kept doing that.
I didn't
And that
realize
was
that. Oh my
yeah, yeah,
god.
exactly. It's really disappointing. It's like one of the big like kind of huge compliments of an elitist is it's actually getting invited to a group and somebody meant to inspect you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean that's absolutely the case. I mean, like just giving somebody random legendary through killing a normal mode boss, you can give somebody rewards, but you actually have to let them earn it and feel rewarding.
Yeah.
It has to feel rewarding. The rewards don't feel rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't give somebody something and tell them that they earned it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you don't go to your kid's fifth grade graduation and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe he made it. Big fucking deal. But it's like if he graduates college, it's like, okay, this is kind of a big deal. If he graduates law school or business school or something like that, engineering school, it's like, okay, medical school, wow, this is all right. I can't believe he made it. And it matters really. Like it's like nobody rides around the snowy griffin thinking like they got a big dick because everybody's got it.
Yeah.
Like you're going to be riding around Invincible, and Invincible is not even a big thing anymore. Like maybe the Grove Defiler, or maybe a Gladiator mount, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Exclusivity breeds value and creates value. And it's like you don't buy a Lamborghini to go 200 miles an hour, you get arrested. You buy a Lamborghini to park outside Taco Bell and see people taking pictures next to your Lamborghini. Then you come out, then you act like it's not a big deal because you
So
got a
true.
Lamborghini.
Exactly.
And like that's human nature. Anybody that thinks that that's not how things are, open your eyes and go outside. That's exactly how it is. People are completely materialistic, and having those material things, even if they're made out of pixels, is still very valuable. And giving somebody something that they can work towards, that they can come home and get 2% closer to each day, is very meaningful for people that might not really have other avenues in their life to pursue that. Whether they're losers, whether they're kids, whether they're disabled, whether they're elderly. It gives somebody something that they can work towards. And I think that's really valuable. And that's why people were addicted to the game. Being able to have something that you can invest your time into and get something out of, and you can really be put on an even playing field with other people, is extremely meaningful for anybody that's actually been able to get something out of that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, obviously, it only matters to the people that it matters to, but I'm saying like somebody that actually does succeed in that environment, whether it be a video game or real life or sports or anything, that's something that they're always going to remember. And creating those experiences is, I think, something that Warcraft did very, very well. And that they've kind of eroded ever since probably Mists of Pandaria or late Cataclysm.
Yeah. I agree with you 100% on this. And you know what I find shocking is I've made the mistake of joining some like Facebook groups that I regret joining and some like Discord channels, and I voice my opinion in these, and it's your same opinion, and I don't feel like I'm in the majority when I say stuff like this, when I express feelings about like wishing that legendaries were harder to get, or that raids like that things were a little bit harder sometimes, and that some opinions in LFR that I have, like I don't
Yeah,
feel
it
like
should
I'm
be removed from the game.
yeah, exactly,
Period.
like I feel like the
That's all there
same.
is to it. There should be one difficulty with optional hard modes. That's it. No two
Yeah.
difficulties. Maybe a 10-man version of another raid. That's
Yeah.
it.
And
I mean, Burning Crusade was fine. That's why subscribers went up.
yeah.
It's kind of simple.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just numbers. They don't even tell you what they are now. But I mean, that's obviously the case. The more changes that they make to kind of exclude and push away hardcore players, the more casual players come into the game. So it changes the balance between hardcore and
That's
casual
true.
players. So the more times that they have, welfare legendaries that are just randomly awarded to you through no effort or time or work of your own, obviously that's going to diminish the amount of people that are like us that really want to work for something. And people like that reevaluate their time and they say, why am I playing this game all the time whenever somebody else can play it for an hour a day and get better rewards than I can just through being lucky? That doesn't make somebody feel good. It doesn't make somebody feel like they've accomplished something. It just makes them feel like their time's worthless
Yeah.
and it's just random.
In the same groups,
Yeah,
like people will link, like look at, like I play a Resto Shaman, and people will link
yeah,
like Jonats, like I just leveled my Resto Shaman to 110, like got Jonats, so I'm like, go kill yourself. I still haven't
yeah,
gotten this. Like I
yeah.
can't believe it. Like it's yeah, and it makes me as like a player who like strives for those kind of things, like just feel terrible, and like I haven't achieved anything. So like can't get my bestest
Well,
levels.
yeah, I mean, there's no correlation between effort and reward, and I feel like that's something that the game really emphasized back in the day, and especially through like being being able to get along. And I feel like the more antisocial systems that they put into the game that encourage antisocial behavior, like personal loot, LFR, all that kinds of stuff. And obviously, there are arguments for each one of those, but I feel like some of the consequences of those are developing and fostering and nurturing this antisocial behavior where people feel like they deserve more, they want more,
Yes,
and it's all
yes.
about them, and they never really think about the group.
Yeah, I feel that 100%. And it's hard for a content creator, I guess, like myself, in regards to, I started making the game just because I felt like there was a lack of Resto Shaman content out there, and I was
Yeah,
always getting asked, like, you know, what about this for Resto Shaman, or what does the talent change mean? I'm like, I'm just gonna make a video about it because I'm tired of telling people, and
yeah, yeah.
people really responded to it, and that's kind of how my channel took off. But I find that like there's only a small like niche amount of people out there who really care about like, you know, not min maxing your character, but like playing the best and like, you know, really curious about which legendaries are best in slot and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Because it's, I don't know, it's,
Well,
there's,
it's a dying audience
yeah,
because Blizzard's killing it.
yeah.
That's why. It's very simple. It's like what they said about kind of like Laura's example of, having like one player in the raid who isn't performing up to par because they haven't gotten enough artifact
There's
traits. And
tons.
so, yeah, and so instead of developing the game, it's like you just look at this from a numerical perspective. Instead of developing the game over the 19 other people who all have the shared ideas, they're going to change the entire game for the whole 20 just for that one guy.
Yeah,
Does that really make any sense?
no.
Like you have 19 people that are all everybody has the same goals. And there's one guy that obviously isn't meeting the goals that everybody else has. So there's a problem, a breakdown in communication there. And instead of trying to say, well, maybe you should recruit somebody who's better, who shares your same ideas, they're going to change the entire game around, the minority, right? Even though those players like that are all over the place, I think that really the idea, and if you just look at it from, a perspective that way, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like developing a game to make sure that nobody ever gets singled out or nobody ever has a bad social experience or anything like that. If you want to make sure that nobody ever has a bad social experience, get rid of all social experiences. Because as long as there are any of them, people are going to have bad times. It's the way it
That's
goes.
just
Because
how life
people are
is.
people. Yeah, people are people. They're always going to do that. And I feel like that's really what they've tried to do. I think that really they've had internal testing and internal feedback that people that have negative social experiences in games and Warcraft or like their guild or whatever, like having something ninja looted, etc., all of those things have made them want to quit the game. And so Blizzard, in an effort to remove negative social experiences, has thrown the baby out with the bathwater and gotten rid of all of them.
Yeah.
And I think that's really kind of what's happened. And we've seen that happen a lot in Legion. Again, with the advent of all of these other systems where you can get in the group, you can do a whole raid and everything, and you don't even have to talk with anybody or do anything, and you don't have to deal with loot distribution. And like from a player that's been doing this for years, right? It's completely unheard of. And I feel like there are a lot of people like me, like you out there that feel this way. And I think that many of them are kind of shamed or told that they're wrong, that they're losers, that they're elitist for it. And that's why I try to just stand up and say, yeah, you're goddamn right. And you're just not fucking good enough. And that's really all it is. It's like I'm very much a meritocracy person, and that's what I really got into WoW for, is that I was like 16 years old, 17 years old, a fucking loser. Everybody 16, 17 is a loser, okay? And like, I could put my work and put my time into something, and then before you know it, I had people that were old as my teachers asking me for advice. And that type of success is it's indispensable and it's indescribable and it's invaluable to a person that is in that formative time. And I don't think it's a bad thing.
No.
It's not a bad thing to not be good enough. Not being good enough doesn't mean you never will be good enough. It just means that you're not right now. And the aspiration to get better has just been completely undermined.
Yeah. I think I wouldn't be like as good as a player as I was now if I didn't apply to a few guilds and fail like miserably and like get shit on real bad like
Yeah.
by the guilds that
Yeah.
I apply to, and they point out those things and then I'm like, Jesus, like I need to fucking fix that like ASAP.
Yeah.
And now I don't suck. Like I mean, it's just kind of how it happens. I don't know.
That's the way it goes. I mean, you fail and you improve.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of making sure that nobody fails, nobody loses. If you never lose, you're never going to win. You
Yeah.
can't always win. Winning doesn't matter if it's guaranteed.
Yeah.
No, nobody's glad. It's like, if you're beating like the first level in a game, it's, wow, great. There's no satisfaction. There's no sense of reward, sense of success if something is just guaranteed. And I feel like adding more things that are not guaranteed is going to be better for the game, and kind of allowing people to fail, like giving people the privilege to fail is important, and the process of letting them feel like their time is really worthwhile. And failure is a component in that. And if that's not present, it doesn't exist. The whole thing is just, it's broken.
Yeah. Do you? I'm not in the PvP community and I don't PvP, but I know from watching your videos that you do occasionally do some PvP. Do you
Yes.
find that PvP has gone the same way that raiding and PvE rewards have?
Oh yeah. PvP. It used to be you would save up your arena points every week and you'd finally buy your sword, right? Your mace or whatever, your helmet, etc. Now, you're randomly awarded items. There are stat template. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are no guaranteed PvP rewards. Now, they're going to be changing that a little bit in patch 7.2, and it's going to be getting slightly better, but the core problems still remain. The problems in PvP right now are, I think the stat templates were a good idea, but I just don't really think that it was the best solution. I don't think they should have stat templates. I think it was a really good experiment, and I think that the decrease in PvP participation, like if I stream PvP, or if like you can look at tournaments for PvP, the viewership is abysmally low. Like it's honestly really sad, especially as somebody who grew up watching PvP videos, from Swifty and shit. I would love this, and to see what it's at now is really disappointing and sad. And I feel like part of the PvP community has done that to itself with the toxicity that it's created inside itself. And also on top of that, I think that Blizzard hasn't really done themselves any favors by trying to make WoW as balanced as possible. I think that people wanted to play a balanced game. They'd play, another esport, right? And really, I think that what they're trying to do, and because Holinka and I think guy Jeremy McIntyre did a video Q&A on Twitch talking about this. What they're trying to do for esports in 2017 for a while is great. It's awesome, but they're trying to develop kind of incentives for people to play and compete. But what they really have to do even more is develop incentives for people to watch and care, and that really just hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So what I think they really need to do is make PvP rewarding, give it competitive rewards that people can actually work towards, and also get rid of the stat templates and just allow people to take the gear that they earn into PvP. Obviously, some things would need to get nerfed and changed. Maybe they'd have to get rid of legendary effects or certain trinkets, draft of souls. But, that would be better than what they have now. I feel like the PvP templates have not really achieved balance. Obviously, if you just look at arena participation and the amount of players and certain specs and classes on the ladder, and also at the same time, they've made gearing up and developing a character a very flat and unrewarding and unfun experience.
Yeah, I wish I PvP'd more, but I really don't, and I think it kind of has to do with like it's just not rewarding at all to PvP, and like it's I don't get
Yeah.
much from it except for I guess when there's the weekly that you kind of have to PvP, and then I'm forced into it, and I have someone carry me, so that's
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is I think that there are all kinds of little things like that where I think they should make the weekly 10 games instead of 10 wins, because it kind of disincentivizes bad players to play. I mean, there are people that suck at PvP but like it, and they're never going to get their box. And maybe they are if they, lose 30 games and they finally win 10, and at the end of it they want to jump off a fucking building. Like just let them do their 10 games. Just let them lose 10 games, give them a box, pat on the back. There you go. Fine. It's not really a big deal. I feel like in some ways they're catering things towards like the very high echelon of players, and other ways they're catering it to the most uninvolved, apathetic player possible. And having that duality there hasn't really made either groups happy.
yeah. Well, well, we've been going for a little while, so I'll have a final question for you. What do you think WoW content creators do for the community? You like, and you specifically. I mean, do you think that they garner interest in the game, or like just like provide a service, or a mixture of everything?
I think it's part of an investment in the game, and also they provide the very obvious thing by making a guide for a certain like thing. Like so, if you want to know how to solo Glory of the Thundering Raider, there's like one video on YouTube on how to do that. It's mine, and so if you're a person that wants to figure this out, you're gonna go, and those content creators provide that. On top of that, it's like being able to kind of have like that extended community and the ecosystem that that creates, it gets people thinking about it, and it uh, makes them think about just the game, the content creators, the ideas, the people, and everything outside of just playing the game. And I think that being involved in it on that type of meta level is something that's going to keep people engaged with the game and engaged with anything really for a much longer time. And it's going to take more to get them out of it. So, I mean, I remember back. I think this is the best example is that I remember back. Do you remember whenever Swifty got banned?
Yes.
Um, so and then Athene made the video. He's like, I'm gonna carry Swifty. We're gonna get rank one together. I mean, that was the most hype ever. Like that was fucking amazing.
Yeah.
And it's like even if you don't really care a lot, you can at least respect the fact that this is like a really cool thing that's going on. And I feel like just those kinds of stories and everything are just really cool. And even on like a micro level, on like different servers, and different little things that you would do, and or things that would happen on your server with different people that are well known on the server. Like those are it gets you thinking about it, gets you involved on more of an emotional level, and I feel like that's something that's very valuable to games in general. I think that games that have a very strong community are games that survive, and you can see that with a number of other games as well. You've got Super Smash Bros. Melee has a very large scene going on with it, even though it's a super old game, and that scene has kind of been revitalized and built up purely through the community. And I think that's been completely to Nintendo's advantage, to the Super Smash Bros. Franchise and everything that's been developed to keep people engaged and invested in the game. And so by seeing those tournaments and seeing Mango or Hungrybox or some other Smash Brothers player winning or losing a game at like a clutch moment, like that's an emotional response that people get out of it, and that's what they're going to remember, and that's what they're going to think about. And I think that that's something that's valuable in any community, and the fact that the Warcraft community hasn't really been developing that as much recently, and I think that's something that's going to happen with Twitch in general, because there's a certain implied competition between creators. But at the same time, I think that having that extended community is going to be very valuable to creating a healthy ecosystem for a game.
Yeah. Great. So, any closing statements, or do you have anything else to say about content creation in general, the WoW community, stuff like that?
I would say if you're looking at doing content, you're looking at making content, you got to do two things. You got to educate and you got to entertain. Okay, you got to do those two things. If you're only going to do one, you got to entertain. You got to be funny. People can watch any guide they want. They can read the Dungeon Journal, but there's a reason why they watch Fat Boss instead. That kind of stuff is important. You got to be funny, and you got to have fun, and you got to enjoy it. So if this is something you'd want to do, make sure that you're doing it for yourself, you're doing it for fun, and you have fun doing it. That's my best advice. A lot of people ask me about that. Since we're talking about it, I think I would add that in.
Awesome.
That'll be what I'd say.
You heard it from him, guys. So thanks so much for watching this video, and yeah, thanks to Zach for doing this for me, for being my guinea pig and my first person on here. I really appreciate it. So thank you a lot.
Sure, it was my pleasure.